Hello, my name's Kahlede and I'm a retired naturopath, and I'd like to share with you some information that I've acquired over the years about giving up smoking. I think it's new information that you probably haven't heard before. I've used it many times. I've found it to be highly effective, and because cigarette smoking causes so many people so much harm and worries these days, I thought it might be good to put this out there and hopefully help a few people. So, if you've got a few minutes, or if you know somebody who has or is fighting this problem, this addiction, then you might let them know or send a link over to them or something. Okay. Just a little bit of background first of all, because there is a theme underneath this sort of story, and that goes back to the beginning of when smoking became a world phenomenon. It was largely successful for two reasons. The manufacturers of the cigarettes employed the energies of film stars, our heroes, the people that we looked up to, and also employed doctors, the medical fraternity, to give it a badge of credence or respectability. So, in a sense, through the combined efforts of Hollywood and organised medicine, the world became addicted to cigarettes. And interestingly, from my perspective as a retired naturopath, I find it funny that doctors are promoting now and assisting and being paid to help people give up smoking by giving them patches and lozenges and chewing gum and all these different things and what have you. And in fact, in my opinion and from my experience, the whole thing is largely a scam. Anyway, I'll let you decide for yourselves as I give you the information that I've acquired. First of all, most people who smoke cigarettes, or just people even thinking about the subject, would think that they're addicted to nicotine. And so that's the end of the story. You're addicted to nicotine. But what does that actually mean? What does the nicotine do in its addictive state? What's in it for you? What do you get that makes you want to have more? And in this particular case, you might be surprised to know that the answer is sugar. Nicotine releases sugar into your bloodstream through glycogen, that it's in muscles and so on. When your body detects the nicotine, which is highly poisonous, it releases adrenaline, and the adrenaline immediately releases the sugar, and your blood sugar levels go up. So what you get is the high from an increased amount of sugar in your blood. A little bit like children that get the same type of thing when they've eaten too many sweets and run around. So what I'm going to share with you is that there are 3 ways of giving up smoking that I don't believe have been addressed or emphasised anyway, and I think that they're the 3 best ways. They leave patches and things like that for dead. But just before I get on to telling you what those 3 ways are, just to reinforce what I said then a moment ago about the nicotine and the sugar addiction, I first came across this information, I think, back in the 1970s. I'm not sure, I haven't looked it up, but I do know where I came across it. It was in a book called Sugar Blues, and it was written, I believe, by the husband of Gloria Swanson, the old film star of many years ago. So I don't know how she came, or her husband came, to write a book on sugar and sugar addiction, but in there the narrative speaks quite clearly that inhaling tobacco releases and increases your blood sugar levels. So that's where I first came across the information. But 30 or 40 years of practice and helping people give up smoking at different times just reassured me of the fact. So if you can still get that book, or if you're interested in, that's Sugar Blues, And it's not Gloria Swanson, but it was her husband, I think, that wrote it. Anyway, another thing to consider about this idea of how smoking connects in with sugar, and sugar is your direct source of energy, of course. So when you think about the two most enjoyable cigarettes that traditionally a person recognises, in their day of smoking, and those two cigarettes to me would be the one that you have after your main meal at night, and the cigarette that you have after just having made beautiful lovemaking sex. After both of these occasions, the demand or the craving or the desire for a cigarette is at its peak. And in both of these occasions, there's a good reason for that. They're related, but slightly different. The reason why we acquire or we desire a cigarette after a main meal is an alternative for having what's traditionally thought of as having a dessert. When we have a dessert at the end of a large meal, it's not because we're still hungry. It's because we've just put a large meal down into our stomachs and we don't have the energy to digest it, and we need some immediate sugar to do so. So we desire a sweet at the end of the meal, because that sugar can get straight into our blood system and give us the energy to digest the food. When we have a cigarette after the main meal, it acts the same way as the dessert. So cigarette smokers don't normally eat dessert. And the second, passing on to the second one, of course, is that after torrid lovemaking, when we've used up a lot of energy, we need that energy replaced as soon as we can, and we can get that by inhaling tobacco and getting that sugar hit. Okay, so I've made the point that smoking and nicotine is the pathway, not the addiction itself. Nicotine is the pathway to the sugar, and the sugar is literally the essence of our life and the essence of our moods, how we feel. Low sugar, no good. High sugar, hyperactive. Getting that balance right is the whole thing about our mood. And when you smoke cigarettes, the fastest way to get an increase in your blood sugar is by having a cigarette. Even if you put sugar in your mouth, processed white sugar in your mouth, it's still not going to be as quick. But it does, as what the nicotine does, but it does explain why a lot of people have been able to give up cigarettes by sucking on boiled lollies or other sweets that are continuously providing them with sugar. All right. So this sugar balancing technically is called, the glycemic index is what the things are initiating, which is maintaining that sugar balance level that we're looking for. So when we want to then give up cigarettes, which is the most effective way of balancing our sugar, then what we need to do is to substitute it with other effective ways of being able to do the very thing that the nicotine is doing, what the addiction is. So to break that addiction, we need to balance the sugar in our bloodstream more effectively so that we can withdraw the nicotine support and still feel okay and not have the cravings. Most smokers will get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, which is a stimulant, and one or two cigarettes, and often go without breakfast. They've increased their blood sugar levels from that routine and don't require the food. But of course, sooner or later, their energy levels are going to drop again, and of course immediately they reach for another cigarette. Eventually they will eat some food. So that's the first place that really needs to be changed and altered before you can give up cigarettes without severe cravings. And that is that you have to start your breakfast routine or your morning routine with a food-based substitute for the cigarettes. Now you can do this while you're still smoking. You won't feel like it, but it won't make you sick and it won't make you, feel bad. It'll just take up more time. When you get up in the morning, you have to start and prepare your meal, your breakfast, and a routine that is going to provide you with sugar from that digested food within a short period of time, much quicker than would otherwise be. So when you get up in the morning, you have a glass of juice, preferably, a glass of water if nothing else, but something with a bit of citrus is normally good because it flushes and cleans your stomach. And then have whatever breakfast you can tolerate, that you feel like, whether it be cereal, mueslis and different things and so on. I quite like rye toast and avocado. But whatever you can manage, you have to eat something. And this is all before you have your first cigarette. Okay? So then, having eaten, then you have your cigarette, then you go off to work and so on. Now, if you do that each morning and start getting that into a regular habit, so your body now is used to and accommodating a new habit of receiving food, which is sugar, early in the morning to start releasing it into your bloodstream and keeping you feeling good. And of course, when you're feeling good, you don't need a cigarette. You have the cigarette when you're not feeling good to raise your blood sugar levels and raise your mood accordingly. Okay. Even easier, or the most easy way of the three that I was going to mention, is when you get sick, when you get a flu type virus, when you get a COVID like thing, or even when you get a cold, which is all largely the same family anyway, you don't feel like smoking. Everybody who is a smoker knows that when they have been sick and they have smoked during that time, even back in the days when they used to allow it in hospital, but as soon as you inhale the nicotine, it doesn't taste the same and it doesn't give you the same pleasantness. And quite often they'll only smoke a couple of puffs and then they'll put it out. You can take advantage of this alteration. I won't go into why and how because the video doesn't need to be that long. But you can take advantage of getting the flu or flu-like symptoms to give up smoking. It is the easiest of the three ways that I know of, because as soon as you have come out of smoking, as soon as you have come out of your sickness after about 10 days, you won't have liked the smoking through that period of time. You just don't simply light one at all during that time. There's no cravings, there's no withdrawals. You're just dealing with the flu symptoms. And when the flu is finished, you've also broken the addiction of the cigarettes and you can go on free of that. You can't, unfortunately, go in and ask your doctor to give you the flu. You can get a flu shot. Maybe that might help you to get the flu, I'm not sure. But if you are aware that getting sick is the greatest way of giving up cigarettes, and you're aware of that fact, and you just store it away, and then if you're still smoking at some time in the future, and you wake up and you've got a sore throat, and you've got a sniffle, and you think, oh no, I'm coming down with the wog, you go, fantastic, this is the time to give up the smoking. And then through the cold, don't light up one, because if you do light up one, the first one, and taste it, you will immediately realize it is horrible, and put it out, and it will continue to be horrible if you try to smoke right through. The idea is you don't try to smoke right through. You've got to break it cold. You can't just have a puff, a little bit now and then and so on. You've got to go cold turkey there, but you don't feel any withdrawal symptoms because your body is already in an eliminative process dealing with the flu. And what it does with the nicotine, it just piggybacks on that process. Okay? So the best way is taking advantage of getting sick as the way to break. In fact, when you speak to most people that say, I just gave up cigarettes cold turkey, just stop like that. If you inquire, you'll find that they probably were quite sick at the time and they just, said that they gave it up cold turkey because they just didn't feel like smoking. So the second way of being able to do it, particularly if you're a health conscious person, is that you can induce a sickness technically through fasting. Now, if you're used to fasting, or if you can get some assistance in doing a fast, when you go into a fast, you alter your metabolism in a similar way to how it's altered when you get sick. and your normal blood sugar regulatory mechanisms from food and so on are altered, and the need then for the nicotine to deal with that sugar is altered. So doing a juice fast, I particularly like juice fasting with powdered spirulina as a backup to the sugar, and I use the powdered spirulina mixed with either a pure grapefruit juice or a lemon juice and then a sweetened juice, because you must break down the protein bonds in the spirulina to kill the obnoxious taste that it has. If you do that with the acid from the juices, then it gives it a flavour that even children will drink without any trouble at all. So doing a fast for, again, 5 or 6 days is the second best way of being able to do that. So doing a fast is the second best way. Taking advantage of being sick, like with the flu, is the best. I'm best at being easiest, simplest, and you're going to have to deal with the flu symptoms anyway. You see, so that's what makes it a part of the reason why being the best. And then the third way, of course, then is the more sort of program way, where you start to alter your diet and you start taking control of your blood sugar levels, your glycemic index, through your diet, through drinks. You might need a little bit of assistance with that, but that's the program way of going about it. You set up that structure of food coming in, so that you can then withdraw the cigarettes and you won't get the fluctuations in your blood sugar levels. Just imagine now for a moment if you're a cigarette smoker and you don't do that. So you're used to getting up in the morning, having your coffee, having 2 cigarettes, going off to work or whatever it is, maybe having something, a snack at 11 o'clock or whatever, and then having a meal. If you take the cigarettes out of that, you've slept all night and fasted off from the evening meal, so you've got virtually no blood sugar, in your blood sugar in your bloodstream, and then you've had a cup of coffee, which is a stimulant, which has just flared up and gone down. It hasn't added any sugar, and now you've gone right through to lunchtime and you haven't eaten anything. You're actually in a state of starvation, and you're going to feel really, really bad. Particularly when your brain knows, it has the memory that all you have to do is have a puff on a particular smoke and you will instantly feel better as the blood sugar levels rise. So that's the addiction and craving that you get. So if you've set in place what you need to do with your food program, when you withdraw your cigarettes, you will already be in the process of regularly having breakfasts and having lunches and having evening meals and maybe snacks in between, juices, other things, calorie controlled, so that that you're getting all of the blood sugar that you need. And the last little piece of information, just to reaffirm this in your own mind, is if you've ever sat down and say eaten a fairly large amount of chocolate or a big bunch of black sweet grapes, you never feel like reaching for a cigarette after it, because you've already got too much sugar. Okay, so I hope you liked that, and if you found it useful and what have you, you might like to look up my other video on the Kronos virus, which is also tied into some of the medical stuff that's going on at present. And thank you for your patience.